Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Lovely to see you here this morning. It's nice to have a leisurely start today, isn't it? However, that's no excuse for coming in here and nodding off. There's a lot of ground to cover again, so you'll have to really pay attention. I'm going to get through quite a lot of material here again today. Caesar and Cleopatra. I thought it'd be interesting to cover possibly two of the most famous names in ancient history. If you ask anybody for a famous name from the ancient world, I think many people would come up with Julius Caesar, the famous Roman, and of course Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt. And two people about whom there are strange misconceptions. A lot of people from Britain certainly think that Julius Caesar was the person who came and conquered Britain on behalf of the Romans. No, he didn't. We beat him. And a lot of people think that Cleopatra was an Egyptian queen and one of the greatest beauties who ever lived. Well, she was neither of those things. She was neither Egyptian nor indeed was she beautiful. So these are the sort of things we need to sort out this morning. Starting with Julius Caesar, I say probably the most famous of Romans. He was a lawyer by trade, he was a politician, he was a soldier, and as I put in the brief synopsis in the newsletter, he's also a serial philanderer. He was very fond of the ladies, possibly the men as well, but that's absolutely another story. Famed for his conquest of Gaul and a lot of Western Europe, and for attempting to invade Britain, and also famed for his eventual assassination. I'm not spoiling the story, you all know he was assassinated in the end, and that's that. And we know a lot about him. A lot of people wrote his history, Plutarch, Suetonius, Sallust, the great authors, Cicero, and not least of them all, Julius Caesar himself. He was quite an author as well, so we've got his own version of his history. Which reminds me of the words of Winston Churchill, actually, who said, "History will be kind to me because I shall write it myself." Always a good idea, I think. So, quick synopsis of his life there. Born conveniently 100 BC, easy date to remember in Rome. Very quickly, military service for a while, went into politics, became governor of Spain for a period. Got involved in a political thing called the First Triumvirate, which I shall be explaining, conquered Gaul, which took quite some doing, tried to invade Britain, pacified Gaul, lovely word, pacification, then crossed the Rubicon, had an Egyptian venture. Once upon a time, he said, Veni Vidi Vici, and then the Ides of March, and you know what happened then. So then we're going to have a canter through those. His birth in Rome. He was born to a relatively noble family. His uncle was Gaius Marius, who you see on the screen there, and he was a military leader. He was leader of a political party known as the Popular Party, the People's Party. So in a sense, he was the left-wing version. He was a Democrat leader, and that was Julius Caesar's uncle. So he's that sort of lineage. The family name was Caesar. That's the family name. And it's quite possible that the name did derive from the idea that a member of the family, back in history, was born by caesarean section. Caesar is from caedere, the Latin verb meaning to cut. And the notion of cutting out of the womb, again, is another myth. People think it's Julius Caesar who's born by caesarean section. No, possibly one of his ancestors. Much more important for us is the term Caesar, because he was so famous and such a fine leader, has now become a title meaning a great leader. And you get the Greek version, the pronunciation would have been Kaiser. And of course, in modern times, Kaiser still means a leader in some countries. And indeed, the word Tsar as well is a corruption of that. So the term Caesar, his surname, has lived on in those terms. His clan name was Julius. His real Christian name was Gaius. His full name is Gaius Julius Caesar, and he was of the Julian clan. Now that's important because the Julian clan, they claimed they were descendants of that gentleman. On the screen now, beautiful painting by Barocci back in 1598, but that's Aeneas, the Trojan prince escaping from the flames of Troy. Troy is being destroyed by the Greeks. All that story about the Trojan War, that's being burnt down. Aeneas there, carrying his old father on his shoulders, bringing his young son with him, bringing his wife, who at some point he unfortunately loses in the confusion. But the hero Aeneas, now he was so important in Roman mythology because it is believed Aeneas, having escaped from Troy, sailed around the Mediterranean for a while, ended up in Italy, and it's his descendants who founded the city of Rome. So the Romans were keen to establish their own lineage. The Romans were a little bit worried about the fact they didn't quite know why they were different from the other Italians and where they'd come from, and they were quite happy to latch onto the notion that they were actually descendants of Troy, the noble family of Troy. So Julius Caesar's family claimed that they were direct descendants of Aeneas, and that gave him a certain cachet, even more a certain cachet, because Aeneas, his father Anchises, claimed that Aeneas was born because Anchises had an affair with Aphrodite, the goddess of love, Venus. So apparently when Anchises was a young man, he came home after a few days away saying, I had the most extraordinary thing happen to me. The goddess of love came to me and insisted we make love for about a week. And now there's a baby, and let's call him Aeneas. So, a strange story to tell. But anyway, so Julius Caesar not only claims lineage from the noble family of Troy, but even possibly from a goddess, the goddess of love. So, quite a stirring background. And this is Aeneas defeating Turnus, and as I say, his descendants allegedly founded Rome. This is Giordano in about 1705. Interesting too that other monarchies have claimed lineage from Troy. In fact, it happened in England. In England, Elizabeth I, she claimed that she was descendant of Aeneas' grandson, Brutus, who actually claimed the same sort of lineage, the notion that our royal family goes back something like 3,000 or more years. And that was a claim that Elizabeth I made. To the extent that in Totnes, in England, in the county of Devon, there's a Brutus stone claiming to the spot where Brutus had landed in Britain and went on to establish a new Troy he called Trinovantum, which later became the city of London. All a bit spurious, but it really exists, so the story is interesting. Now Caesar, he was educated by one of the great tutors in Rome, Marcus Antonius Gnipho.